So we are studying on the 6 emotions found in the concupiscible appetite. You have that on page 182. At number 27.3.1. So first we saw that love, love, the attraction we have for the good. And after we saw love provokes desire. And here, if you look at Father Jolivet, just about before the bottom of the page, he says a desire is an affective state, affective state, provoked by the actualization of a tendency, through the action of a need, or through a representation. Oh, okay. So I go here to explain that sentence here. So the first thing we have in our body, in our person, every human, some tendencies. What we can call that instinct, if you want, tendency, need, not need. Because tendencies are not actual. We have no awareness. We don't know. In fact, we know our tendencies through our desire and need. Our tendency, we know that, we don't know them directly. So we have no actual awareness of that. The tendency is not manifested. For example, I have a tendency to eat, to drink. It is in my nature.
Innate.
Innate. It is innate. It is. Okay. Now, a certain time, because I did not eat for a certain time, I feel hungry or I feel thirsty. Well, that is a need. I need to eat. I need to drink. Why? Because I have a tendency, natural tendency to eat. So if I have a natural tendency to eat, I feel a need. Now it is the actual awareness. I know I am hungry. I am thirsty. You know, I know that. But it is vague. There is no precise object. That is a need. So we need to eat something. We need to drink something. Here I have the need, but I am not aware of that. So it is a natural tendency. That one tendency is actualized. That means from potency to act, actualize. It is a need. I need to eat. I need to sleep, you know, okay? Now, when we know the object now, that means not only I am hungry, but I desire a good hamburger. Not only I am thirsty, but I want to drink a Coca-Cola. That is a desire. So, you know, we see the three are linked, but they are not the same. That is innate, it is almost instinct, if you want. Now, that is manifested. If you want, the tendency is manifested. I feel in my stomach something I need, you know, okay? And finally, I am now in need for not only to eat in general, but to eat a special object, meat or hamburger or coffee. Okay, you understand? Okay. So that is the desire. I will ask a question. Can God desire? Desire, strictly speaking.
No.
No.
In fact, God cannot desire because He is...
No need.
Yeah, no need. Of course, when we say God desired that I love Him, in fact, we make an anthropomorphism. Because we speak about God using our own experience, you know. But in fact, to be strict, we should not say God desire. We should not say God wants, because God has no want. We should say only God will. Because He cannot be satisfied by any material. Well, if that is theology, natural theology, which we in 2 weeks we study that. Huh? Okay? Well, next week. No, next semester. Next semester. Now the third one, page 183, we have the joy. Joy. The need becomes a desire. And when the desire is satisfied, we have joy or enjoyment. In fact, normally we should not speak about joy for animals. An animal enjoys, but a man has joy. Joy is more spiritual than enjoyment. We will speak, for example, about the joy of angels, the joy of the saints. We never say the enjoyment of the saints, because the enjoyment is more material. St. Thomas, when we study next week, the analysis of the human act, he will say at the end, when we possess the thing, we enjoy it. When I was young, my father gave me and my brother 5 cents. 5 cents. With 5 cents, we were able to buy ice cream, a mellow roll, and like a carton of ice cream. So, we desire to, I have my 5 cents, what I want. And finally, I decided to go to the restaurant to buy ice cream. And when I ate my ice cream, I was enjoying it. It was an enjoyment. But because I know that I am satisfied, it can be also a certain joy. But the joy is more spiritual, more detached. Okay? Joy is the act of the will delighting in the possession of the love of God, enjoyment, the delight in the of the appetitive power in the attainment of an end. I drink a good glass of wine, a red wine, when I enjoy that, Okay? But I receive a good grade. I received a letter from my bishop. You will be ordained the 3rd of April 2021. So you are filled with joy. Joy, because it's more spiritual. Okay? Now, hatred is the opposite of love. That means every time I love something, I detest what is opposed to that. We will see that in a few minutes. I will come back. Aversion is dislike for something opposed to the good. We have aversion for example, if somebody is happy to be rich, he has aversion for poverty. No? He has aversion for... If I am in good health, I have aversion for sickness. No? If I am in love with God, I have aversion for sin, etc. That means love will go always with aversion. Aversion of what is opposed to the object of love. Okay? I spoke to you about the triangle. Every triangle is based on that. Okay? Sadness, when we cannot attain the good. I desire, I want, I have the desire, but I cannot attain. So I am sad. If I attain, I am joyful, or I have enjoyment. And finally, so 5, that is with the concupiscible appetite. With the irascible appetite, then you have another kind of, we have courage, audacity, courage, audacity, despair if you don't attain at all, fear. I will see that, you have that here, that.
Yes.
Okay, take that. It is the motion of concupiscible appetite and movement of the irascible appetite. Okay, you have that?
Yeah.
Well, that is only to understand the link between the emotion, because there is no pure emotion. Every emotion is linked with For example, if you have the emotion of joy, you are sad for the opposite. Okay? For love, well, see, the object is the good. Is the good is absent, I desire it. I desire a thing when the thing is not there. I don't desire a thing when I possess the thing. Okay? Because the thing, the good provoke the desire. Okay? Desire imply the absence of. Yeah, that is the canticle of canticle. When the bride is absent, to provoke the desire of the groom is absent, to provoke the desire of the bride, the fiancé. If it is present, I enjoy it. I have joy, delight, joy for men. But at the same time, love implies hatred. Hatred of the evil opposed to the good. If I love justice, I detest injustice. You know? Okay? If the evil is absent, I have aversion. If the evil is present, I am sad, sorrow. Because, you know, for example, what happened in Paris, we are sad. Because the evil is present. But we have aversion for what can happen in the future. You know? Why? Because we love peace. Because we love peace, we love fraternity, and we detest terrorism. You know? Okay? Now, movement of irascible appetite. The appetite of fighting to obtain something good. If the good is difficult, arduous, two possibilities. If it is possible to attain, I have hope. I hope I will find. For example, when you play against another team, you play hockey, you play baseball. Why do you play? Because you have the hope of winning.
Good health.
If you have no hope, we say forfeit. No? We have the hope, so we have the hope to triumph. But if it is impossible, you despair. You are sad with despair. Now, against the arduous evil, if it is not, because there is a good, but there is also what is evil, and the evil can be also arduous to avoid. So that provoke anger, anger, irascible. So if the evil is present, that provoke audacity. We have the virtue of fortitude, courage, to face the obstacle, to fight. But if the arduous evil is not present, but you have fear. For example, at war. I was not at war, but I saw that in movie and I heard about that. When the soldiers are preparing for combat, they are in the plane or they are in the, they fear. But when they are facing the enemy, they become audacious, courageous. They fight, you know. But fear is not opposed to courage. Somebody can be very courageous, but before going to combat, it can be also, it's normal to have some fear, some fear. Okay? So anger is the emotion or passion provoked by facing the obstacles it considers as invincible. If the obstacle appears to be invincible, there is no anger, because there is no fight. If there is no fight, there is no anger. Okay? And that is explained in the next chart you have. Diagram. The possible linkage between passions in the case of arduous good. So we have here the light. Everybody has that,
Yeah.
Okay, I explain that here. So you have the love of good, at the same time you have the hatred for the obstacle impeding you to attain that good. Okay? Now I go they are linked, what with the other. I cannot have the love of good at the same time, not hating the opposite. Now, in front of that good, the love of good, we saw that, the love of good, provoke the desire for the good. And also the hatred of the obstacle provoke aversion for the obstacle. In the same measure you desire the good, in the same measure you detest, you have aversion for any opposition to that good. Okay? Now, two possibilities. If the obstacle is surmountable, or if it is not surmountable. Well, suppose the obstacle is surmountable, what happens? The aversion will be united with love, and we have hope, and in front of the danger we have audacity, and that audacity provoke anger, fight, and when we triumph, we are filled with delight, we enjoyment, we possess the object we wanted to have, even if it was difficult. You can apply that for example, for your studies. To study is difficult. You have to persevere, to make effort, to fight against laziness, against beautiful music because I cannot concentrate, etc. Finally, you arrive, you are happy. But if the obstacle is not surmountable, then you go to the second. You have despair, fear, on the setback because of lack of courage. There is no anger because you have no contact with the obstacle, and sadness because the arduous desire is not possessed. So that is it is an essay of linkage between relation between emotion. But in fact, it is much more complicated than that. But that is to prove that we don't have pure emotion. I cannot have, for example, only a pure hope. I cannot only pure despair. I cannot only pure love. No, love implied, if I love God, I detest sin. I detest the devil, etc. Okay? So that is and now on page 183 and 184, you have the different explanation about the irascible appetite. So the first, okay, you have the page 183. I lost my page. Anyway.
182.
182, yes, 182.
Irrational appetites.
Oh. What is the first at the bottom? Forgot. Oh, we hope, huh? The first is hope. Huh? Hope. If the thing is possible, hope. Hope is a part of, is linked with fortitude, the virtue of fortitude. Second, it is courage, audacity. Courage, audacity. Courage or audacity. In that implies fortitude, strength also. Despair, if we cannot attain. Fear, because we are afraid. And finally, anger, when we are facing the obstacle. Okay, so that's it. Go page 185. I think it's the end, huh?
Yes.
Okay, so we finish with that, the study of emotion, yes, emotion, of appetite, sense appetite, sense appetite. We study emotion, we saw the three components of emotion. We saw that awareness, somatic change, and the desire for the good, and the tendency toward the good. So now go to your next paragraph, volition. I will consecrate more time to that during this class and probably a part of the next class because it is central. the notion of volition is central. Even if you have not many pages, you will see that it is very, very dense. Very dense. And if we finish sooner, now you will be you will be in vacation. Not tonight, the next week. Okay. So volition. We saw that appetite are sense appetite and intellective appetite. We saw that appetite as an action, we call appetition. In the case of the will, we call that volition, the act of willing. And the act of willing, we call that also elicited. You remember?
Yeah.
Yes.
Elicited. Okay. So, to volition comes from the Latin velle. The verb is velle, and the word is voluntas. We see that in the voluntas tua. Fiat mihi secutum voluntatem. Tuam voluntatem. Or in fiat voluntas tua, our Father, thy will be done. Fiat voluntas tua. That thy will, fiat is the verb to facere at the passive form, fio. Fiat, fio. Okay? It's not a car. Be careful. Fiat. Fiat voluntas is not a car, fiat.
Also,
It's equivocal, fiat and fiat. Okay? So if we come back to what we studied before, subject, act, and object. You remember? Subject with the powers, different power,
capacity, potential.
the act and the object. And we said in the last class, there is a superstructure perfecting the subject we call a habit or a virtue. In fact, that habit, that virtue does not change but qualify. It is a quality of the subject, the quality of the will, for example, of the intellect, a superstructure, acquire operational structure. Remember, acquire operational structure. We put a structure on the tractor, no? If there is no structure, the tractor can do nothing except to run. But if we put a plow, we can clean the way. If you put a mower, it can cut the grass, etc. Okay? So, nature of the will. So the will is the subject. It's a power of the human mind. It's a power. It's an intellective power. It's a power. In that power, in the subject, in fact, I will through my will, no? I know through my intellect. So it is a power to allow the I, the person, the I, to accomplish action. But action, the action of the will is volition, volition or willing. Attain an object, and that object is good, something good. Okay? Well, that is the pattern we follow during the class. Subject, and the power is in the subject, the will. The action to will or to volition, and the object is the good. So we have to study all that. So what is first the will? You have that in your text. And the will is the rational or intellectual appetite in man. Rational. That means I'm using my reason. My will is guided by my intellect, by my reason. In fact, intellectual and rational are not absolutely synonymous, because intellectual imply three operations. Or intellectual imply simple apprehension, judgment, and reasoning. But the characteristic of man is reasoning. Because angels, they know. They judge, but they don't reason. God knows, he judges, but he does not reason. Man reason. So we can say the characteristic, the specific of man, is not only to be intelligent, because he is intelligent with angels and God, but to be rational. Okay? So my will, my appetite, we call the will, my intellectual appetite, is guided by the fact I can reason. I have a reason. And what is the virtue influencing my reasoning, my reason, my intellect? What is that virtue? It is the virtue of prudence. Prudence. So prudence is reason, intellect applied to concrete object, concrete situation. It's not speculative, it is practical. It's a practical virtue. Practical virtue. Okay, I continue. That is the source of volition whereby he seeks good. So the object, the search for good. In fact, what is to will is to seek. Is to seek good. To seek good. Okay? And as perceived by the power of the intellect. So that good is known. Is presented by the intellect. Be careful, the intellect, not the sense knowledge. Because the will is an intellective power, so it is the intellect that informs the will. The intellect informs the will. Okay? So I am seeking goods, and when we speak about goods, we speak about object, but also acts. Acts and things. Not only I like things, I like also to do something. I like action. For example, you like swimming. So swimming is an action. Can be the object of your will. So be careful. When we speak about good, it's not only a thing, an object, like a cow, or like a car, like a dog, like money. It is also activities. To go in vacation, for example, and to study. When you study, it is an action of your will. You pay attention now. Apparently, I'm sure. Not apparently, really. So it is a good for you. Okay? I continue. Because they are presented as good by the intellect. So the condition to know, to will the good is to know the good. But the fact you know the good, can the fact you know the good provoke your will to will? Is the good the cause of the fact you will? No. No, because if you know, suppose I go to a jail, I make a big, important drug dealer, and I explain clearly to them that to sell drug is a crime. And they understand. Therefore, there will be no more drug dealers. No.
Yeah, a lot.
Oh no, many come back, they are still drug dealers. Socrates, the mistake of Socrates was that. Socrates is saying, if we want to change the morality of the young people in Athens, we must teach them virtue. We must teach them justice. It is enough to teach justice to make people practice justice. It is sufficient for a pastor to preach, to say you must go to Mass on Sunday because you love Jesus Christ, that the next Sunday everybody will be in the church? No. No. So that is important. Huh? Knowledge is not the cause of the act of willing. Like the lamp of my car are not the cause of the functioning of my motor. But they are a condition. My motor cannot function correctly if I don't see at night where I am going. You understand that, huh? That is very important. The intellect is not the cause of the action of willing. It is a condition. I cannot will if there is no good known by myself. But if there is a good known, it is not necessarily as consequence I will do it. No. You know, we have many lawyers. They are corrupted, and they know the law very well. Some legislators, they wrote the laws, but they don't observe them. And Jesus said that, huh? Do what they said. They say, but don't do what they do. It's important, okay? Knowledge is a condition of knowing an object, but it's not the cause of your willing. That is the limit of priests, of parents, of teachers. A teacher can convince his son, and you know, you must assimilate, you must study, you must do that. Okay, but who will take the decision to study?
Student.
You, not the teacher. In fact, who is the first responsible for any education, any formation? Is not the pastor, is not the superior of seminary, is not the teacher of ethics, it is the student himself. I think William James, he was a great pedagogue, he said, what the teacher says is nothing, what the teacher does is nothing, what the student does is everything. That means, in fact, yeah, you can have all the best speech, the best knowledge, you have to touch the will. And that is the problem, because the will is free. That is the challenge of evangelization, the challenge of education. Some parents, some teachers, some parents especially, I taught my child to go to Mass on Sunday to do that, but yes, but it's not sufficient. Your child is free. You indicate the way, but I take another way. You know? You can, the master, in fact, what is freedom? Is to be the master of my own decision. But my decision must be enlightened by my intellect. My intellect present to me good. I can present all the aspect of that good. You should do that. But finally, the decision must come from the intellect. It comes from my free will. That is the big challenge. It's the reason why I don't accept that education is only to teach. Education is teaching, but more than that, form the character, try to help the student or the child to decide by himself in the right way. But we cannot do that by ourselves. The limit. Huh? The limit. Okay. It's a good reflection. Sometimes we think, I will preach with... No, it's not like that. Jesus Christ preached, how many people believe? Huh? At the end, there were only 12. Huh? Only 12.
One.
Yeah, for that, only one.
Only one.
St. John, on the foot of the cross. Huh? Okay? Now that is, it's very deep, reflection, very deep. Huh? We cannot act directly on the will of man. Even God does not act directly. He sends His grace, but He does not force us to love Him. To love God is a free act. He can give us all the light of the Holy Spirit. But the decision comes from me. Is the reason why Mary has a merit to have accepted to be the mother of God.
She could say no.
Yes, she was able to say no. And she said yes. And that yes come from her. She was not a robot. It was a free act. Like Jesus, He came to do the will of His Father in a free act. Because only in free act there is love. Love is necessary free act. An act forced is not a free act, it's not an act of love. It's an act of slave, no? And Saint Paul says, we are no more slaves, we are children of God, we are free. Okay, well, I close my parenthesis. It's interesting to see the link between philosophy and theology and education, etc. But it only is education useful, is philosophy useful? Very useful. Very important to reflect on reality. Okay, I come back to my text here. So volition is the determination of the will. Determination of the will. What determines the will? The object, the good, the object. The object determined. We saw that when we study knowledge. My act of knowing is determined by the object known. When I see a kangaroo, I don't see an elephant. I see a kangaroo. So the kangaroo determines my act of knowing. Here, the good determines. For example, I decide to eat an apple. I don't eat a banana, an orange, no, I decide to eat an apple. So the apple determines my act of willing. I will an apple. Eat an apple. To eat. I don't will to eat an apple. So I am, my act of the will is very touchy because I will go further, My act of the will is determined by the good, by a good, by this good, okay? But if I am determined, am I free? So many philosophers say we are not free because we always act will an object, and that object determines our will. Therefore, we are not free. But for the moment, let us say that we cannot will nothing. I will some good. Therefore, the good determines my will. Okay? I continue. I will come back on that problem. So, so this act of willing is the object. That means I will, not only I will to will. Because I can will not to will. I will to do something, so I will. But I will not to do something. So I can will not to do something. I cannot not will. When I will. But I will to do or not to do. So the will is elicited. It is what comes from we saw that, elicited, gushing from myself. But always live with an object. Okay? I don't create the object. Okay, I continue. As the intellect is the supreme cognitive power in man, so the will is the supreme appetite in man, controlling all human behavior. That appetite is very important because all my behavior, all my conduct is governed by my will. What is that? Ethics. Ethics. Moral fundamental. Ethics. In fact, ethics is linked with the will and also with the intellect. You remember what are the conditions to commit a sin? Matter. Secondly, reflection, knowledge. Thirdly, full consent. Full consent. So the intellect and the will, both. Okay. And as the intellect is the spiritual power, we said, so the will is the spiritual power. That means we can will independently of matter, even we can will against matter. For example, I am thirsty to drink Coca-Cola, but my will can say no, you will drink water or you will drink nothing. I can control that. That is a spiritual power. The matter cannot control itself. It is a spiritual power. Okay? So it is the reason why what we studied tonight is very linked, very, very close to responsibility, to morality. In fact, it's a part of the class of ethics I give tonight. We saw the four cardinal virtues. Now we see the act of the will. So the next paragraph, the objects of the will. So first, spiritual or rational goods to attain rational or spiritual evil to avoid. All purely spiritual or rational good are sought by the will alone, and rational and spiritual evil are rejected by the will. For example, the will seeks justice, truth, that is spiritual, order, immortality, and the like, life eternal, pro-life, see? And hate and justice, deceit, chaos, and death. Those are spiritual reality. So my will can have as object a spiritual reality. Okay? I continue. However, the will's objects are not limited to spiritual things. My will also can will the will of God. My will also can will to drink a good Coca-Cola and to eat a good hamburger. Yeah? Because it is my will who does that. It's not my appetite. My sense appetite are tending toward Coca-Cola. My sense appetite are tending toward hamburger. But finally, who takes the decision to eat hamburger, to drink Coca-Cola, is not my sense appetite. It is my will. My will. Finally, it is my will. Okay. Otherwise, a man he drank too much, is totally drunken, and that man he cannot say, it is my body, my concupiscible. Punish my concupiscible appetite. No, my concupiscible appetite must be controlled by my will. Virtue of temperance. And the virtue of temperance, in fact, imply will. The will is everywhere. That means I practice fortitude, I need the will. I practice temperance, I need the will. I practice prudence, I must use my will to apply my intellect to the situation. So the will is in everything, like prudence also is in everything. Because I must be prudent in temperance, must be prudent in fortitude, must be prudent in justice, In fact, prudence and justice are the two virtues informing all moral virtue. We call them cardinal virtue. Cardinal. Cardo in Latin means inch. Inch. To support the door. Inch. So the four, here are 3 inches. In moral, 4 inches. It supports all the other virtues, except theological virtue, are attached to one of the 4 virtues. And that is dominated, controlled normally by the intellect, prudence, and the will, justice. Perfected by justice. The secondly, physical goods to attain and physical evil to avoid. The will seeks also to attain physical good, a good meal, for example, or avoid physical evil, for example, diseases, etc. But when the will acts in its sphere, it is because of its reasonableness. It is reasonable in these physical good. The will accept some material good because the will see in this good something rational, something human. The will, in fact, finally, who is responsible? Is the will. It is the will. Who is responsible for the practice of prudent justice? That is the will. The will is everywhere. There is no activity in man in order to attain the good without the will. And the will does not act without the intellect. St. Thomas says the intellect is the first. St. Bonaventure says the will is the first, but in fact both are the first. We can't separate them. They are Siamese sisters. They are one body, and we cannot separate them. They are distinguished, but they are always together. So I go now just okay. But when the will is okay, I saw that the sight of food might arouse the person's concupiscible appetite. But in fact, why do I eat that food? Because it is reasonable for me to eat that food. In fact, I told you, in every material action we do, sensible action for the good, to eat, to run, to wash, etc., there is always, I compare it with the reason. My intellect is always with my sensation. In fact, we don't have pure sensation. We don't have pure, when we are awakened, we don't have pure emotion. I know that I have emotion. My emotion does not suppress my intellect. When I cry, when I laugh, I know that I cry, I know that I laugh. If I don't know, that is a big problem. Okay? So, number 3, the will ultimately controls all behavior. Finally, the will is the supreme leader of all my activities. Human activity. There is no human activity without the role, the light of the intellect and the power of the will. Even material activity. For example, you write now. It is a material activity, but it is commanded by your will. You eat is an animal activity, but commanded by, not only by your senses, but by your will. It's such a way that when you eat, you don't eat like an animal, you eat like a human being. And not only you know that you eat, but you will to eat in such a way. You don't eat the same way your dog eats. You put something rational through decoration, etc. We call that cuisine. And we have special people for that, we call chef. Well, the chef is the one who put rationality in the food. He makes an action, animal action, a human action. So it's important. We cannot say we have pure animal action. No. When I am awakened, I am aware that what I am doing is good for me. Because it is good, I will it. Okay? So even when I eat, it is a human action. It is a responsibility. I obey my human nature when I eat. Not that I eat by pleasure, I eat to survive, to have energy to work, etc. Okay? So the will, even behavior motivated primarily by sense appetite, is not carried out unless the will consent. It's interesting to see that all, I will say, animal activity in men are rationalized. They are laws, for example, laws of politeness at table. Etiquette, we call it, etiquette. Huh? Okay? He was in appetite to read what he was reading. Okay. Now, we spoke about appetite. I told you the problem. I cannot will without the good. And the good, that good determines my will. And ask the question, is the will free? Some philosophers, they say the will is not free. Some philosophers, they say the will is absolutely free. We can do what we want. Some say we have to obey nature, you know. That's the 3 positions. Huh? So how we can conciliate the fact that I will a good, and that good determine my will. And I continue to be free. Okay. So that is the problem of free will on page 187. Well, that problem, it is probably one of the most important you will have to face in your life. If you are a teacher, if you teach second grade, secondary school, college, it is a big question. I taught at a level, many times they ask, why are we free? If we will not be free, we will not commit sin. So if I commit sin, because God made me free, therefore God is responsible for my sin. No, many questions, very serious question, very deep. Because if I'm not free, where is my responsibility? If I am absolutely free, it is I myself who does the law. I decide that marriage between two cats two male is very good. So I force cats to marry together between male, and after that men and women. You know, those who say that because they are they think they are the master of nature. That means they determine nature. They are not determined by nature. They determine nature. Or the other extreme is the contrary. I am totally determined by nature. You see that? In what case? If, for example, someone they say, I am totally determined by nature. That means everything I do, it is because it is imposed by nature. The object is imposed to me by nature. I have no choice. I am like a cat, you know. On the other side, they say, no, I am absolutely not determined by nature. On the contrary, I dominate nature, I transform nature. I decide that, for example, gay marriage is perfect, abortion is good, etc. And you have the position between. You know? So we have to face that. In your life, as a teacher, as a pastor, you will have to face those questions. So that is very important. So the free will. Well, for the existence of the free will. But in fact, how do you say you are free? How can you affirm you are free?
Free to do good and avoid evil.
Yeah, from your experience, no? What is the experience where you prove that you are free? When you
over evil.
You choose. No, when you choose. When you choose to do or not to do, to study or not to study, or to study physics, metaphysics, or to study history of the church, for example. You know, in fact, I know that I am free when I take free choice, free decision.
But our freedoms has very few choices.
Yes, but the first choice is to will or not to will. And to will to do or not to will to do. But you could look at your childhood. You affirm your. How did you affirm your? How do you say your freedom to your mother, to your father when you were 3 years old? You begin to become a man. No. I have a nephew. My sister said his great nephew. She said her great nephew. She said, now it's the age of no. It's no everywhere. And you want to do that? No. You want candy? No. Oh yes. And it's funny. The child affirmed through act of the freedom. He wants to affirm himself to oppose. To oppose. In fact, we know we are free. And we know we are free, why? Because after our action, we say, oh, I was not right to do that. I was right. And the experience of remorse. Remorse. Okay? So, I go to the text here. So the will is free power in man, basically because it is the appetite that follows reason. Because reason can see several alternatives equally feasible as being of reaching one end, the will has freedom to elect from among them. So we have the experience of choice. Why are you here and you are not in another seminary, for example? Because you have a choice. And when you have a choice, you exercise your freedom. You choose the class of Father Michel Legault, but you can choose the class of Dr. Duncan, you know. It changes like that, okay? So nature, what is the free will? The free will is an ability. What is an ability? It is a quality. Well, you have the will here, and you have the free will. Free is a quality. What is that?
Habit.
Habit. That means your will acquire an operational structure to choose as you will, as you decide, free will. Okay, is ability, is an ability. When you are a baby, you have freedom, but you don't acquire the ability of making act of freedom. And to make act of freedom, we learn that little by little. A child learns how to make act of freedom. That means act of choice. And your mother say, a choice. Do you want you have your brown shoes or your black shoes, etc. You know, choose. You have many candies. May choose one candy. I want to have everyone. No, 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 only one. You know, I choose everything. No, a choice is not. You know, a choice is a sacrifice. When you choose something, you sacrifice the other. It is particularly true for marriage. When your father chose your mother, you sacrifice the other on the village. After sometimes we have a regret, but you know it's too late.
The other 9.
Okay, so such voluntary act of choosing, voluntary act, voluntary activity, we say volition, or voluntary act, voluntary. That means the act of the will. And for men, the act of the free will. Free will, okay? Of choosing or not choosing, that is experience you do. For example, when you choose, first, you choose to do or not to do. So choose to do or not to do. That is the first choice. We call that freedom of exercise. Or freedom of contradiction. Because you can say yes, you can say no. Contradiction. So the first, and that's the first act of the will, to do or not to do. That is an illicit act, you remember that, It's not, it's not innate, you do that. Okay, now if you say to do, you have now to choose among many means, many means. So to do this or to do that, we call that freedom of choice. But also freedom of specification. Why? Because we decide what will be, we specify, we determine the good we want to attain. We choose the means, the specification. So here, to do or not to do, freedom of exercise or contradiction. To do this or to do that, freedom of choice, that is the choice of means, means, here, okay? So, free choice, Father will not define the act of the will causing itself. Causing, it's very important, causing itself to will. That means the will is the cause of his own act of willing. Very important, the will is the cause of his own act of willing. That is to feel. That means I am the one who provoked illicit act. I am the cause. I cause myself to will. Okay, I read the text again. The free will, the act of will causing itself to select one or two or three alternatives. You know, first here, causing itself here to do or not to do. If you do, choose the means proposed to it by the knowledge. If I cause myself to do something, myself in Greek is auto, auto Greek, and I determine myself, auto determination. Free will is auto determination or self determination, or self mastering. I cause myself. What is the meaning of that? I cause myself to do something. It is, we saw that, of course, we are determined by an object. But that object, it is I who decide it will determine myself. Auto-determination. The dog or the cat is determined by the mouse. The dog, you give a steak, is determined by the steak. But man in front of a steak is not determined. He can say, I don't want the steak, I want the fish. It is Good Friday, no meat. You know? Man has the power to cause himself to choose the object of his willing. So the object determines myself. Of course, I eat ice cream, I determine by ice cream. But it is myself who determine the object of my will. Very, very important. That is excessively important. It is myself who determine the object of my will. That is freedom. If you don't accept that, there is no more freedom. We have determined by the object. And that is the theory of some philosophers. They say we are determined by our environment, by our education. I determine by myself the object that will determine me. If I drink Coca-Cola, I'm not determined totally by Coca-Cola. It is I who choose Coca-Cola as the object of satisfying my thirst. That is freedom. And that is very touching. It is really the central of freedom. So the object is the good. Kind of good. Universal good, the supreme good. Well, here I have to explain something. I will finish by that. And you have time to reflect on that during the week. And that chapter, like the chapter on intellection, with the intellection, it is the most important chapter in all philosophy. Intellection and volition. They are central. All the rest depend on that. Ethics depend on that. Social ethics depend on that. That conception of what is intellection, the conception of what is freedom, free will. Okay, so I have a power we call voluntas, or will, okay? The will. That is will power, intellective power. But, you know, in everything, when I will something, I desire something, I desire it on the aspect of good. So the good determines, it is true that the universal good, the aspect of good, determines my will. So we call that voluntas aut natura. In my nature, like my intellect is determined by the truth, my intellect necessarily tends toward the truth, my will necessarily tends toward the good. That means in everything I am tending toward the good. I have no choice to tend, because my nature, like my stomach, is determined to receive food and not to receive oil and gas or and cement, concrete and iron. No, my stomach is determined. No? My will is determined by the good, especially the universal good. That means in everything I do, I desire, under the aspect of good. And that I have no choice, I have no control on that. It is a natural appetite. I cannot change that. It is in my nature. With this nature, it is my essence as principle of activity. Okay. So here there is no freedom. But there is will. There is one case where there is freedom without will, free will. There is free will, there is will, but there is no freedom. And we are not free. My will wills the good, the absolute good, the perfect good, without any freedom. Saint Augustine says, I am always tending toward the good. I was not happy. It is, by comparison, like a compass. And the compass always will go to the north. So if I go in a forest, my compass always the north. And if I obey my compass, I will find my way. I am not free. I am not free in regard of the magnetic north. By the way, it is in Canada, not in the United States. Okay. Now, when I am in, but am I in front of universal good every day? I never meet the universal good. Like I never attain the universal truth. I am always open toward the good, like I am open toward the truth. Huh? I have an infinite tendency toward the good. Okay? And because of that, not a single finite good can fill my appetite of happiness. Not a single. Okay? Therefore, I am free. St. Thomas called that voluntas ut libera. In front of all little goods, finite goods, I am free. Because not a single finite good can give me the perfect good, can give me a perfect happiness. Here we see also good is the objective aspect of, and happiness is the subjective aspect. Huh? They go together like the two coins of the same side of the same coin. Huh? I cannot separate happiness from the good. For example, in the movie Babbitt Feast, huh? I wish you will see that. Huh? The people try to separate the goodness of the taste of the wine, the good meal, and the pleasure. No pleasure. We cannot separate. If you eat something good, you drink something good, can you separate the taste from the object? No. So happiness and good go together. So I cannot attain the perfect happiness on earth because we die. Okay? So, but in front of finite good, I am totally free. So if I am totally free, who decide that good and not the other? It's not the good, it is myself. So I am free because I am not free. Funny, huh? It's a paradox. I am free because I am not free. I am not free in front of the perfect good or the perfect happiness. I am, by nature, I tend totally to be absolutely happy. And happiness on earth does not exist because we die. And the thought of death spoils every fun. Huh? Okay? But in front of everything, money. For example, St. Francis of Assisi. He was in front of money. What he did? He said, no, I don't want to marry money. I don't want to marry a rich woman. I will marry the lady poverty. You know, we cannot preview the decision he will take. We can say maybe he will do that, but never with certitude, because it is not you, it is the person who decides. Among many good. Many good. Somebody, maybe they are very surprised that you are in a seminary. It's impossible, you are in a seminary, you are crazy. Huh? Why? Because you decided that. Huh? You decided that. And one of the role of the formator is to verify it is really your vocation or the vocation of your mother. You know, I told that the story. Huh? The priest who has 8 sisters, I said that to you? No. There was a priest has 8 sisters. He was the baby of the family. Imagine, 8 sisters, and the 9th one is a boy. So he was like a doll for the sister. Huh? Every sister, one by one, enter religious life. His father died. The mother entered religious life. So what he said?
Be a priest?
Exactly. I have no choice. I must be a priest. And he became a priest. It was not his vocation at all. So he was the vocation of the family. Yeah. Yeah. So, in fact, it is libera, voluntas libera, free will. Huh? It is you who decide what will be the good for you. And that good determines you in the measure you determine the good. It is determination. It is a kind of reflection. You can do that because you are spiritual. Your dog cannot do that. He cannot reflect on the act of willing. Not only you will the object, and you will the Coca-Cola, then you will to will the Coca-Cola. You will, because you remember, to choose Coca-Cola is to choose a mean. But before choosing the mean, you must choose to do or not to do. So you must will to will Coca-Cola. That means it is, you have the capacity of second degree. Remember, not only we know, my cat knows what is a mouse. He distinguishes a mouse from a lion, from a dog, but he does not know, he knows. So not only we will, but we know that we will. We will our action of willing. Auto-determination. We determine ourselves, so we are free. And that is freedom. Freedom is essentially in auto-determination. Self-mastering. Self-mastering. I am the master of my decision. I am not the slave of the object. I am not the slave of the drug, of the alcohol, of the ambition. No, I am the master. And to be free is to be able to control oneself, my appetite, I am the because I am the will who decide. I will my willing. In fact, willing is the act. The will is the will is willing the object. You know, so I am responsible. So responsibility, moral responsibility, is based here. You know. So I repeat what I told you before. All the class of ethics is based on that chapter. Chapter is very, very important, like the precedent also, but the chapter on the free will. So next class we continue our reflection on that, and we study the conclusion of that class will be what is man, what is the human person. And now it is useful for your study in theology, and you study what is the person, three persons in the Holy Trinity, the two natures in one person in Jesus, etc. So all those classes are very, very important for you. Have a good week.